Hello everybody and welcome along to the stream. This is a lesson for Year 7s and we're going to have a look at debugging today. So debugging is a word that we've used before. You'll have heard me use it when we're doing our programming in Python, but we're going to have a look at it today with not Python, sorry. When we looked at Scratch, we're going to look at it with Python today. So what is debugging, for those of you who might have forgotten? So debugging is the process whereby we fix anything that might be wrong with our code. But what's really interesting, and I love this story, is where debugging, the word, comes from. And it actually comes from an actual bug. If you ever look here, right here is a moth that has been sellotaped to a page. And the reason why this is the first ever computer bug, and it was a term created by a computer scientist called Grace Hopper, who was working in the 1940s. She was working on the Mark II computer when she discovered that a moth had actually flown in and got stuck in the machine and stopped it from working. So computers back then didn't look like computers do now. There were lots of cogs that would turn, and it was quite delicate and intricate, and there were lots of moving parts. And this moth had actually flown into the computer, because they were quite big, and got stuck in between the cogs and stopped the machine working. And so Grace had to get in there and actually remove the bug to fix the computer. So she said she was debugging the computer. And that's where debugging comes from. It comes from that very first bug. And it's amazing that they stored it as a piece of history. So that's the history of debugging. And we're going to follow in those footsteps today by doing some of our own debugging. So there are basically 3 steps to debug. First thing you've got to do is figure out what the error in your code is. The second thing is find out where that bug that's causing that error is. And the third thing is fixing it. So if you follow those 3 steps, it's really quite simple. It's not a very complicated process. It just can be quite tricky identifying where that bug is. Hopefully I'm going to show you today how we can make it quite easy in Python. So step 1 is really helped out by Python, because actually whenever we try and run a program and we get an error, you get a whole load of information in red. You get that red text that's full of information. But actually the biggest clue is usually on the last line. If we look at our last line here, it gives us a bit of a clue. So for example, it says name prinit is not defined. So if you looked at that carefully and you went, oh, hang on, that's not spelt right, you'd know that that wasn't the right command and you'd be able to change it. So if we had this bit of code that said prinit, it was a dark and stormy night, and it's given us a clue, the name prinit is not defined, it's saying there's something wrong with this bit of code. In fact, let's get a Python program up. Now I know, guys, you won't necessarily have Python at home. I know we use idle a lot at school, but what you will be able to do is go online. I'm going to show you how to do that now, because there are Python compilers and Python IDEs online. So we're going to use that. So let's just put that on screen. There we go, guys. So the one that I'm using is rep.it, so repl.it. If you pause the video now, you'll be able to go onto a browser and load up repl.it, repl.it, and load up a Python 3 file, and you'll have, just like I've got here, you'll have a blank one in front of you ready to go. So assuming you've done that, let's try that code that we just saw. So we saw prinit. Now we know that's wrong, but we're going to just test it to see how the debugging works. So we're going to say prinit, and I'm just going to write hello, just a simple message. Right, let's run that. Okay, and it comes back with that red text, but then the last line, name prinit, is not defined, so it's telling me there's something wrong there. And we know that that should say print. So I'm going to just put the N in the right place, and we'll run it again and see if it works. Awesome, so that's gone hello. So we've got there, we've gone from the wrong code, where we got our red error, like that, and we've gone, right, that's where the error is, that's where we need to go to, let's make the changes and run it again. And now it works. Okay, so that's basically it. Obviously that was a really simple example, and as your algorithms and your code gets more and more complicated, then you're going to have more and more complicated things that you need to debug. So let's look at another example. that actually I want you guys to try and debug. So that's the change we made. We made print into print, and then it ran fine. Right, here's an example I want you guys to debug. Now, there are some errors in this that I have put in. So at the moment it won't run. What it should do is it should print a list of cakes. It's quite a simple program, but I've got lots of errors in it. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 errors. I think there's 2 errors in the top line, and I think there are 2 errors in the bottom line. So that's a bit of a clue for you guys. So what I want you to do is I want you to find the errors in the code, I want you to fix them, find the bugs, and then fix the bugs. Simple as that. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go to this reptile that I was showing you. Like so. I'm going to go to that, and we are going to write the code. So you will need to get the code and write it in. Now here's one I made earlier. So here is the code, and if I run it, we're going to get an error, and it's pointing me to that first line, and it's saying there's something wrong with this first line, and I'm not going to give you any clues at all, but you need to try and figure out one of the things that's wrong with it. There's 2 things wrong with that line. So think about what you know about lists. Now what you might need to do is you might need to go and look at my video on how to make a list in Python. So if you go onto the YouTube channel and find it, you'll find it on there, or you can go and do a bit of research, or you can look at your old work, but try and find out how lists on Python work, and that will help you to debug this today. Once you've debugged the list, then you might find that there's more errors in the second line as well. Okay guys, what I want you to do is once you've got the right program, as in you've debugged it all and it works, I'd love you to take a screenshot of that, save it as a picture, and then I want you to submit it on the VLE in the Year 7 section. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much guys. If you've liked this video, please give it a like, and I hope you're looking after yourselves, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.